It is now our pleasure to present you, Frank Rich, journalist, author, and cultural critic, the degree Doctor of Arts, honoris causa, with all of the rights and privileges appertaining hereto. Congratulations and thank you.
I finally feel legitimate. Dr. Carter, Professor Day, everyone here today, I've always felt happy and at home in Chicago, the great newspaper town that literally invented the romance of the front page. I'm especially happy and honored to be here with you at Columbia today as you celebrate your graduation into the real world. The real world. When I was working on my college newspaper, that was the name we gave to the inside page where we dumped all the news from beyond the campus. We thought that if we could somehow keep the real world confined to a couple of columns of newsprint, maybe we could keep it at bay indefinitely. There was real incentive to do so. At that time, the world beyond our campus meant Vietnam, an unpopular war with no end in sight being fought in a mysterious land on the other side of the planet. The real world caught up with us soon enough, and eventually we made our peace with it, some of us more easily than others. You'll do the same. But I realize in retrospect that we had it easy. Yes, you too are about to enter a world increasingly defined by a controversial war that has no end in sight, a war unfolding far away in a culture far different from our own. But you've got another problem to deal with that we did not. In this new century, the line that separates what's real from what's false blurs by the day. We had lying politicians then, to be sure, but you now have politicians and a handful of giant media companies taking lying to a whole new level. They are all messing with us, trying to redefine and distort the coordinates of reality itself. At the silliest level, this new ersatz reality turns up as that prime time form of entertainment called reality television. Indeed, a form pioneered by an unreal show called The Real World. The term reality television is a misnomer because reality television is as tightly controlled and manipulated by its producers as any nominally fictional sitcom. But reality TV has not remained confined within its borders. Now, network news anchors conduct interviews with the so-called real people who star in the so-called reality shows as if they were actual newsmakers making news rather than essentially contestants in game shows that are more scripted than spontaneous. Well, the Survivor and the Apprentice are not going to harm anyone. They can even be fun. It's when the principles of this so-called reality television carry over to our real world of war that we begin to see a larger cultural problem. Certainly this has been the case in Iraq. Though real people have fought and died in this war and continue to do so, we have often been shielded from seeing the painful human cost of the fighting. Brave reporters may have been embedded with brave troops in Operation Iraqi Freedom, but their reports often didn't show us the heat of battle so much as describe it from a safe distance. Nor did we meet many of those Iraqis that we were liberating. They too seemed at a distant remove, like faceless extras in a Hollywood epic. Instead, we got close-ups of American military officials giving us almost unfailingly good news from Central Command headquarters. Among other tales, they told us the heroic but heavily fictionalized story of Private Jessica Lynch, a story that was embellished so much that even the brave and dignified Private Lynch herself disowned many of the specifics once she was able to speak months later. But the Rambo version had sounded good at the time, and it had been beautifully produced. The military had made a video of Private Lynch's rescue, and they presented it from a very impressive stage that had been created by the same designer who did Good Morning America. That CENTCOM set cost $250,000, by the way, plus another $47,000 to ship it from America to Qatar by FedEx. It was a small price to pay to help spin the illusion that war could be upbeat, somewhat bloodless, and kind of cost-free. Then the war was over, or at least that's what we thought we were seeing. The President of the United States landed a jet on the USS Abraham Lincoln dressed like Tom Cruise in Top Gun. He was looking good. He gave a speech that was perfectly timed to catch what movie people call the magic hour, that golden glow just before sunset when the world looks full of infinite promise on camera. Behind the president was a professionally painted banner reading, "Mission accomplished." Everyone cheered. But as it happened, the war was not actually over. More than a year later, the mission has still not been accomplished, and far many more have died. And now we are heading toward another ending to the war, our June 30th handover of power to largely unknown Iraqis. This, too, may make for an impressively staged television pageant, even though it's possible that not a single American soldier will return home once our mission is declared accomplished yet again. Some of you, perhaps many of you, are going into the profession that deals in these images, that world loosely known as the media. I'm glad you are. We need you to help cut through this fog, and fast. Earlier this week, the newspaper where I work, one of the best there is, had to inform its readers that we had repeatedly gotten a major story wrong, printing erroneous information that wildly overstated Saddam Hussein's arsenal of weapons of mass destruction during the run-up to the war. We're hardly alone in failing to always do our part to uphold reality. Americans have witnessed the rise of a cynical cable channel that shall remain nameless. It's called Fox. That promotes opinion as news and often downplays or refuses to show stories that might reflect poorly on the politicians with whom it is ideologically aligned. Then there is the case of those 40 local television stations in 33 different markets that this spring ran false reports starring a bogus news reporter. The reporter broke the hot story that a new Medicare prescription drug program was perhaps the best thing to happen to America's seniors since Social Security. As it turned out, these simulated news reports were actually produced by the Department of Health and Human Services at taxpayers' expense. But the stations ran them anyway. They didn't know the difference. As Rob Corddry of The Daily Show correctly put it, here was a whole new category of fake news, infoganda. No wonder The Daily Show, a fake news show that proudly admits it is a fake news show, often has more credibility than the real news shows it is satirizing. The news business has never been perfect. This, after all, is the city where the leading newspaper ran the headline, "Dewey defeats Truman" in 1948. But we've reached another level of artifice now. Never before have we had more access to supposedly real events unfolding in real time on 24/7 TV channels. Never have we had access to more information sources, whether through the hundreds of channels on our TV sets or the countless sites on the web. And yet, the more information we get, the less we seem to know. It's not so easy to navigate a real world in which so much fiction masquerades as reality. But you enter that world fresher than many of us are, prematurely wise in the ways of a culture that is always trying to sell you something, more wary than those of us who stumbled into the matrix naive and ill-prepared. Whether you are consumers of this information or potential purveyors of it, I urge you to stand up for what's real. At a time of war and terror, we need your fresh eyes, your skepticism, and your integrity more than ever. Our future, not just yours, depends on it. My congratulations to all of you who are going out into the real world today, and to the families and the teachers who have worked so hard to set you on that path. Thank you.